Now, before we go to Parliament, let's spend some time and unravel some details in the President's last State of the Nation address, which he delivered on January 3rd. Now, I mean, there are some highlights, but we're focusing on the economy because the President says they're handing over a strong economy. To quote, he said, Ghana is not broke. And Dr. Sa-ad Iddrisu is an economist, and he joins us in the studio just to discuss a bit of the economy in terms of what the outgoing administration is leaving behind and expectations of the incoming administration. Doc, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and good morning to you, and good morning to all your listeners.
Good morning. Yeah. Thank you for joining us in studio for the first time.
Thank you.
Right. So, obviously, you've been following and dissecting and bisecting some of the things that the President said in terms of the SONA, the very last one, as pertains to the economy. I want your first initial reaction in terms of what you make of the total speech before we get surgical.
Once again, good morning, and good morning to all your listeners. Actually, the speech was, I would say, quite entertaining. You know, I'm from the north, and where we come from, you cannot say someone has lied. So I wouldn't basically be saying the president lied in the SONA, but
he just did.
There were inconsistencies, so let me be more diplomatic. There were a lot of inconsistencies in the president's speech, which I think, I'm not sure whether the economic advisors are to be blamed for projecting or providing incorrect data, or probably the president himself did not just pay attention to the data that were being provided to him. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what exactly are those discrepancies? Let's start there. First, he says the economy is not broke. And according to the latest IMF report we have, they are describing our recovery as fragile. So we shouldn't be jubilating yet, right? But I want to know you are the economist. Tell us, what are those discrepancies?
Well, if you take a whole economy, or if you look at an economy, you don't limit an economy to just the growth aspect in terms of maybe real GDP or in terms of GDP. And basically, that is what the president, that is what the finance minister, and that is what the entire administration is doing by throwing dust into Ghanaians that the economy is growing. Just because quarter two or quarter three, we have achieved our 7.0 growth. But that is not a basis to say that the economy is growing, because the economy encompasses whole aspects that when you look at other aspects, you realize that we are not doing good as an economy. In fact, this is one of the weakest economy Ghana has ever recorded. And if you permit me, I'll go into the details. So actually,
indicators, for which reason you are arriving at that conclusion.
Exactly.
Yes,
because if you just look at the GDP, well, let's say when you take the entire summation of the GDP, you know, in an economy, someone could contribute more, right, to the growth of the GDP. It doesn't mean that the entire population is doing well. You understand? So probably maybe your contribution to the economy versus the Achim family contribution might be different because they have the resources. Probably whatever Gabi is contributing is making the president think the economy is doing well. Now, if you break the economy down into the various sectors, you realize that we have energy, which is contributing part of the economy. What do you record under the energy? The government or the president currently is leaving 2 billion debts to the incoming administration. Is it an economy that is doing well? Obviously no. Because if the economy was doing well, we will not be leaving 2 billion debt to the next administration. Dollars, $2 billion debt. That is just one aspect, energy sector. Now come to the banking sector. That is the financial sector. Banks made losses under this current administration to the tune of 60 billion, including the Bank of Ghana. That is not an economy that is doing well. If the economy is doing well, we will not be recording such losses. The government, in order to salvage some of these banks, promised that they were establishing a 1.5 billion Ghana Financial Stability Fund to salvage some of these banks. Up to date, it hasn't been established. So the next administration, which is the NDC administration, is likely to face serious banking crisis if this 1.5 billion fund is not established. And so far, according to my checks, we only had 250 million commitments from the World Bank. It's not even in there fully yet. You understand? So you are handing over a collapsed banking sector to the next administration, and yet you are claiming that you have done well. That is not an economy that is doing well. Now, let's come to even there so much touted free high school, the education sector. Basically, our education has been limited to only free high school now. No one is talking about basic, no one is talking about junior, no one is talking about tertiary. They have all basically collapsed. You could look at reports on the basic sector, which indicates that the government has completely neglected it. Even their own free high school, there is a lot of inconsistencies in the data. The president is telling us that 5.7 million Ghanaians have benefited from free high school. His finance minister in his budget is also telling us 3.1 million. So you could tell that there's a lot of data inconsistency. That's why I started by saying that I cannot say the president lied because he's an elder, but unless there's a lot of inconsistencies. And I at least expected that coming from a president. I mean, that's the highest office of the land, that you shouldn't expect such lies to be coming from. Again, if you come to the business side, look at the current monetary policy. It's as at November, as at October, it's around 27%. Within this government, it went as high as 30%. And the monetary policy rate tells you the cost of doing business in an economy. It tells you that businesses are struggling in this economy. So many investors have left because they are not able to do business. You can set your monetary policy rate as high as 30%, bring it down to 27% and expect businesses to stay. Cost of borrowing is high. Local and small-scale businesses are all collapsing.
By then, I'm just doing this comparison for clarity. I remember that, I think it was Kofi, our data analyst and researcher, and he mentioned that as at the time John Mahama was leaving office, we're doing around the same figure, around 31%. But even that, we didn't say that he was handing over a bad economy. And from everything I've heard so far, I'll still give you time to get through your thoughts, but everything I've heard so far, it looks like our problem comes down to debt. The country is in debt. And in terms of the indicators like employment, education, there are some, there's a lot of more work that needs to be done in those areas.
Yes.
Is it not possible that the growth we saw before the crash, that's COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine war, which the government said is the reason for that economic tailspin, is just what they're trying to recover from, and that's what they're calling strong. The recovery from the crash and how we're doing now is what they're calling strong.
They are just looking at the GDP and basing the fact that there's a recovery. But I want Ghanaians, I want us to look beyond that and look at the entire economy. Look at all the sectors, because if you are projecting or if you are saying that the economy is recovering, all these sectors that I've just talked about should also see the recovery. But we are not seeing that. Okay. You get it? So you cannot conclude that the economy is in a state of recovery. The economy is not recovering at all. And you see, if you go even into economic literature, they will caution you to always be careful about using GDP as a measure of growth of an economy, because that in itself doesn't portray growth. Even the real GDP that countries use doesn't portray total growth. So if you want to digest, if you want to analyze the entire growth of an economy, you need to look at other sectors and see if the growth are going simultaneously. If it is not, that means that the economy is not growing. It could just be that one or two businesses in the economy are those contributing to that GDP that you are saying. So at the end of the day, you are going to find the entire population in abject poverty, which the World Bank report stated. Over 8 million Ghanaians are in abject poverty. Is that an economy that is doing well? I think it's basically not. And if time will permit, your data analysts, they could show some of the parts, page 3 of the data. Before, when the NDC was leaving power in 2016, inflation was around 15.4%. As at October now, inflation is 22.1%. That is the World Bank data. You understand? This is not an economy that is doing well. Food inflation itself, as at December 2016, it was 9.3. As at October, this is the current data from the Bank of Ghana, it's 22.8%. Yet they told us they have done planting for food and jobs, but you don't see the reflection on the economy. That is not an economy that is doing well. Our public debt itself as at the time NDC was living, around July thereabout, based on the data, it was 109. By December, it was around 122 billion cedis.
Now we are over 700.
Now we are over 700,
yeah.
761, according to this current data, as at October.
Yeah.
Putting our debt to GDP around 74.6%. We are almost hitting the same target we were when we did the DDEP. You understand? So if care is not taken in the next 2 to 3 years, the incoming administration will be faced with severe debt crisis.
Right.
And if you are not careful or care is not taken, we may be having another DDEP or going back to another IMF program. So you don't say the economy is doing well because it is obviously not doing well.
Okay.
In that regard. And if you look at even the policy rate, which I already talked about, I mean, as at August, it was 26%. It was still high, but it went to as high as 30%, and now they've brought it to 27%, which is still high. We don't even want to talk about the city because it's so embarrassing when you even bring in the city. You understand? You took it around 4 cedi to $1, and you said that at that point, John Mahama was incompetent. But look at where we are today. We are hitting 14, 15. So this is not an economy that is doing well.
What is the danger in not clarifying this? What is the danger in just going with what I know you speak to numbers, and I just want clarity. What is the danger in going with the president or the outgoing administration's rhetoric that the economy is actually doing well? Does that mean that the expectations on the incoming administration become excessively high? Or what's the danger there?
One of the dangers is what you just said. There will be high expectation on the incoming government. And 2, Ghanaians will not appreciate the efforts of the incoming government because there's the lie has been created that the incoming administration is taking over a strong economy, so the expectation is that they should start hitting the ground. But that is not right. In fact, even money to organize this swearing-in ceremony was a challenge to the government.
Was it?
Yes, it was a serious challenge to the government. You understand?
How did you come by that information?
Don't worry about that. But I'm telling you on record, to organize this swearing-in, it basically tells you that the country is broke.
But the president said the country is not broke.
Because the president is lying to us.
Is he being misinformed, do you think?
It could be misinformation.
Because he doesn't speak to numbers. He
doesn't speak to numbers, but as a leader, you listen to your economic advisors. I don't want to push all the blame to the economic advisors because we have 2 categories of leaders, those who listen and those who doesn't listen. So sometimes as an economic advisor, I've been an advisor at my former jobs and places where the governor and other stakeholders, they consult you on economic data. If you tell them, they listen and they go with what you tell them. There are leaders to who you would tell, they will go ahead and report what they want to report. So at that point in time, I don't want to put all the blame on the economic advisor. But there is so much inconsistencies with what the president is putting out. Even with our mid-year budget like this, the 2025 Q1 budget, we could have had a total government shutdown. You understand? It tells you we are in a serious crisis. That is what I want all of us as Ghanaians to know, that the incoming administration is not coming in to inherit gold and roses. No. It's coming in with a struggle. It's coming in with serious debt that have been left behind. This government intentionally, deliberately created these huge debts.
How do you deliberately create huge debts, Dr. Sa-ad?
If you have a finance minister whose company stands to benefit each time Ghana goes for a loan, that is deliberate. Let's be realistic. Because if I know that if I go for a loan, my company stands to benefit in commissions and all that, I'll keep going for multiple loans. So it's deliberate.
Okay. So now I'm curious to know, is there any aspect of our economy that is actually doing well?
Honestly, you cannot say completely a government hasn't done well. But looking at these governments, it is hard to pinpoint where they did well.
We have the indicators, no? So is there any of
that is what I'm trying to see, which indicator actually points to the fact that this government has done well. Because I was hoping that they will have completed Agenda 111, which will have been an impressive achievement of the government, but it's 0. Even the 3 Agenda 111 hospitals they said have been completed. They should come out and point to us which hospital, how many patients are there, so that we'll go and verify for ourselves. It's 0. None of the hospitals have been completed. all the sectors of the economy, just look around, all the sectors, you know, Akufo Addo could have gone down in history as the best president with free high school. Honestly, it's a good policy, brilliant policy. Because if you educate the human resource, then you have a growing population.
Great. So free SHS did not do anything to reduce the literacy rate in the country?
Because free SHS ended up producing quantity instead of quality, to the point that people get into the universities, they cannot even do basic arithmetic. I'm not the one saying it. The university professors, they came out and were saying it. So at that point in time, 10, 15 years' time, we are going to have a generation of dummies. You wouldn't want your doctor, your mother or your son or whoever to be treated by such a nurse, such a doctor. You understand? That is the scenario, or that is what free high school is doing to our generation right now. You and I that paid to go for quality education, our generation will be better off from the next generation that will be coming. I don't think you want that. That is why you see parents struggling to even send their kids to private schools and pay for them to get quality education.
Okay, but Doc, my question is, has it improved our literacy rate?
It hasn't.
Free
if you look at free high school hasn't improved any of
I know you are the economist, but the data I have, according to the latest population, that's 2021 population and housing census, it says there's been an improvement from the 2010 census, which was now 67.1%, coming down all the way from 66. We are currently at 67 as per the 2021 census, and we're coming from 69.8%. That's some reduction, is it not?
It may be some reduction, but believe me, in terms of quality, it isn't, because you are only producing in terms of quantity, but you are not producing in terms of quality.
Okay.
You understand? And we've politicized the free high school to the extent that children are deliberately being passed. I'm not the one saying it. The schools have said it themselves, either through cheating and all those sort of stuff, just so that they will get into the university, just so that it will look as if the government is doing well. That is not the free high school we want for our children. And that is why I'm telling you that even the current administration, if you go deeper, those with children, do their children attend free high school? They say no, because they go and pay for private. You understand? That is why the NDC under 2015-2016 were kind of starting with the progressively free high school, making sure that you need to put the right infrastructure in place. Currently, my family brother, Mohammed, he attends St. John's Senior High School. He's in Form 2, that is second year. He's currently home. But school is in session. Only first years and third years are in school. Second years are home. What sort of free high school are we running? Then when the third years or first years are coming home, that is when they get to go, somewhere in February. So you come home and you sit like 3 to 4 months. Basically, whatever you've learned in school, you definitely forget all that.
Okay.
You understand? So that is what I'm looking at.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a road contractor. Probably they may say they've done well in the road sector.
Yes, in fact, they said this administration.
That one, I don't have the data.
Constructed the most
roads. So maybe a road engineer or a road contractor could speak to that. Yeah. But the areas that I am looking at, honestly, I try to look at just one indicator that you could say that the government has done well in the economy.
Okay. So let's go back to, in a way of bringing the conversation towards its end. Give us those indicators. Maybe we can peg it at 5, and what the actual figures are, and then we can take it up from there.
This is what's the name? This is from the Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
That's the report. So if you go back to the ones that I showed you the inflation data, if they could project it again. I've showed you food inflation. That is one of the statistics before and after what we witnessed. I showed you the public debt before and after what we've witnessed. You get it. I showed you monetary policy before and after. Then the cedi depreciation before and after. You understand? These are all indicators. I don't want to say the president is lying, but I want the viewership to be the judge. Because if you said the economy is doing well, then the economy that was doing well was the one you came and inherited.
What lesson can the incoming administration learn from how the outgoing administration run the economy, what key lessons should they not miss? They ought not miss?
I think the current administration is faced with a serious crisis, that is the incoming administration. And the lessons to be learned from this current government is how not to govern an economy, basically. I mean, pardon my words, I want to be respectful to the president as possible, you understand. Look at corruption alone. They took the economy when we were doing around what? They said the NDC government was very corrupt. And this is from the Auditor General's report, right? At that point in time, financial irregularities was around 1.4 billion. And then the Addo, it has jumped to 16 billion. Is that an economy that is doing well? An economy riddled with corruption?
Yeah, that's another one.
You get it. That's another one. So basically, this government shouldn't be greedy. When I say shouldn't be greedy, they should take Ghanaians at heart. They should take the economy at heart. And among themselves, among the NDC, we should eschew greed. Because greed is one of the factors that led to MPP's defeat, you understand. And again, greed leads to people not getting the right positions they desire. Because you end up living competency and only reward loyalty without incompetence. And once you do that, you mess up big time. You understand? Loyalty is good, competency is good. Make sure that you reward both. Because you need competent people in positions of power to be able to deliver on your mandate as a government. And again, we are faced with a serious debt crisis. Currently, as, what's the name? Our interest payments alone on debt is around, just for Q1, it's around $1.4 billion. So the government is inheriting huge debts and huge interest payments. And there are three options out of this, basically. One is either to kind of, just go the Achampong method, which is what? Default on all your debts and not pay. But there are consequences to this method. Yeah. Consequences in the sense that you have bad credit rating, you lose investor confidence, and again, you will be inability to borrow. You can't borrow from the Eurobond. Right. That is one method. The second method is just continue the rat race, which are called the rat rates. Go keep borrowing, just use the borrowing to keep paying your interest.
Rob Peter to pay Paul
till whenever the next people come into power, you leave your troubles for them, that kind of rat race. Or three, you could think outside the box. So that would depend on the economic management team, those those who are part of that team, as well as the finance ministry, those put in charge. You understand? Thinking outside the box will be to start looking at other options like debt swap. You understand? It's not new. It's like it's still coming up. Other countries are doing it. We can do it too. We have a serious climate issue, which is galamsey, right? We destroy the river bodies. We destroy the forest bodies. We can get into a debt swap with nature conservative bodies. One of those bodies is called Nature Conservancy. They deal with climate and all that. A lot of countries are beginning to think outside the box. You can't keep going to IMF all the time. Yeah. We've gone there 17 times. It's time we think outside the box to look at other options. As we speak, 20 countries are exploring this new option of debt swap, especially with the debt for nature or debt for climate change. Belize is one of those countries. They did a debt for nature swap, and they have been able to reduce the country's external debt by 10% of their GDP. So it tells you that whatever monies you will have used to pay your debts and interest, those could be used for developmental purposes. Those could be used to save the economy. So if Ghana is interested and those at the helm of affairs start exploring this option, finance ministry, economic advisors and all those people in charge, start looking at these options. As we speak, Gabon, Sri Lanka, Ecuador, Cape Verde, these are all countries that are looking into this new angle. Because if you are faced with serious debt, you cannot continue with the rat race. You understand?
But that is for, in terms of dealing with our debt. Yes. But on a more general note, in terms of the economy, that's my last question to you. What should the incoming administration do in terms of what should they focus on to put the economy back on track?
The people are the economy. You get it? The economy is not an abstract term. We are the economy. You and I, the people are the economy. So if the incoming administration focus on the people, then we'll have a better economy.
Okay.
Focusing on the people means that creating sustainable jobs, not party jobs like NAPCO, where people work for some time, they are cut off. No, you cannot have a sustainable economy like that. Create long-term sustainable jobs. And again, not slavery jobs. Somebody cannot be in a crime and be receiving 700 a month. That is slavery.
It happens.
Well,
still
it's
happening.
Slavery.
People take less than that.
Yeah, but even if it is that, the government must lead by example for the private sector to follow. If the government is paying people by 700, private people will pay 500, 400, you understand? So that is why I say government should try to create sustainable jobs, long-term sustainable jobs for the people. If government focus on the people, everything will fall in place.
Okay. So just focus on the people.
Focus on the people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sa-ad Iddrisu. Dr. Sa-ad Iddrisu is an economist at Louisiana Economic Development, which means you advise the governor in terms of the economy, right?
Yes, yes.
It's fantastic.
And not only the governor, other stakeholders.
Other stakeholders as well.
Yes, other departments, yes.
Well,
that is one thing I noticed over there. They take economic matters seriously. In Ghana,
it's like we leave it to chance, eh?
We leave it to chance.
Thank you for coming. But I do want to say, though, just something you said about focusing on the people. I think that there's a new wave of patriotism sweeping through the young Ghanaian. Now we know that we are the people who give power to our leaders, and so we know how to demand accountability from them. And I think the incoming administration, they understand the shifts in the atmosphere. You can't, we're not voting for you because we are affiliated to your party anymore. We're voting for you based on what you can do to change our lives.
That is true.
And that's something that I think the incoming administration should also focus on, not to take us for granted.
When I was coming, someone called me and was like, if he was Addo, he would not even appear in public. Because the Ghanaian people have just shown him that his government was poor. And the defeat is not only for Baumia, the defeat is for Addo.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming, Dr. Sa-ad Iddrisu.
Thank you.
And stay with us because we're coming back and then we're taking you straight to Parliament in terms of the exit and the, should I call it re-entry of the 8th and 9th Parliament. Stay with us. We're back in a bit.